Morning, everybody, and this is the book review for October. I cannot believe how near the end of the year we are. So I'm reviewing today one of the books that we're doing in our giveaway, which we're doing a giveaway of The Comfort Book by Matt Haig, which I have reviewed before. Beautiful book of reflections on hope, survival, and the messy miracle of being alive. These are just really little short snippets, like essays. Sometimes they're a one-liner, absolutely beautiful things. This is something to keep by your bed, to grab in moments of hope, darkness, wherever you are, whatever you need. This is something, a book to grab. This is yeah, I love this. Okay, so this is one of the giveaways. The other giveaway that we're doing this month, which I'm also going to be reviewing, is this book called How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. She is known as the holistic psychologist, and she has a huge Instagram following, which some of you may know. And she wrote this book, which has become an international bestseller, Sunday Times reviewed in the UK. And I suspect this is going to be one of those Marmite books, one of those you either love it or you hate it. So I was recommended to read this book by a friend of mine a couple of months ago. It starts, the first chapter is called The Dark Night of the Soul. And as I feel like I am once again in the dark night of the soul, it seemed like a very good idea to read this book. It is a book which has, oh gosh, how best to describe it? It says on the front, recognize your patterns, heal from your past, and create yourself. The back blurb says you're not broken, it's not too late, you don't have to live with it, and you can heal yourself. It's a book about being able to go back and, funnily enough, do the work yourself. So it's the stuff that you may do in deep therapy, but it doesn't mean that you have to go through as a process. This is almost like therapy. If you want to go into therapy, but you can't afford to go into therapy, or you have got issues with doing that, or it's something you want to explore, this is a really good place to start. It's a very practical book. Each chapter has got sort of well, how to do the work sections after it, funny enough, with very practical exercises to go through. It starts off talking about trauma and how it talks about trauma, how trauma gets locked into the body. So much like one of my very favorite books, The Body Keeps the Score, which I've reviewed before, by Bessel van der Kolk, talks about the way that trauma stays in our body. And the interesting thing is, I think that trauma, as we often think about it, we think about major things. And particularly when we think about childhood trauma, most of us would say, oh, I don't have any childhood trauma. I wasn't abused as a child. Fortunately, most of us can say we weren't abused as children. And yet all of us have experienced childhood traumas, even though they may seem really small. And that stuff stays with us. It forms our adult patterns in life. And I think what's been fascinating for me doing this book, reading this book, and I kind of went into it with a slightly cynical English, you know, that British, looking at very American, Californian psychobabble, thinking, oh God, really? And yet there is so much truth in this book. There is so much truth. As I had read a bit of the book, I then went on a silent retreat for a weekend where it came up for me then about doing this work on your inner child. And then I read the chapter. I happened to then come across the chapter on the inner child, and then something else I was doing came across the inner child. And it seems to me that everything was pointing towards doing that work. And so that's the work I've been doing. And it's the work that we're called to do. If we really want to go on and heal ourselves, to live full lives that are really worth living, we've got to look backwards. And many of us have ignored that for many, many years. And this is not about going back and blaming your parents. I promise you, it's not about that. I fully believe that our parents do the absolute best they can with what they know and where they are in their lives. And yet it is about recognizing those little things that have got stuck with us from our childhoods that stay with us. There are some brilliant chapters in here on working with the inner child. There are some great chapters on, there's a great chapter on boundaries, you know, something that we talk a lot about as being part of authentic resilience, as is a great chapter on interdependence. Again, what we talk about in connection and reaching out in number 4. So there's so much work here that resonates with what the work that we do at the Resilience Factory. This is the back work. This is if you really want to go back and look at past patterns that have got you stuck. This is good work to do. It's deep work to do. It can be very, very painful work to do. And yet I think this is a really good place to start. So for any of you who are interested in doing that kind of work, I would thoroughly recommend having a go at it. And again, as I say, I'm warning you, it's a Marmite book. You may fling the book across the room going, I think it's an old load of baloney, but maybe you won't. Maybe it will really, really speak to you. What else do I have to tell you this month about books? Yeah, I'm also reading an amazing book by Father Richard Rohr about the second half of life, called Falling Upwards. Funnily enough, it goes in very much with this as well. I think I'm reading on a particular theme at the moment. It's a deeply spiritual book, so if you're not coming from a spiritual faith perspective, you might find it very hard, and yet it is fascinating. I think both that and this How to Do the Worker books, I'm going to have to go back and start all over again from the beginning. I would love to know if you've read either of these books, the Comfort book, How to Do the Work, or Falling Upwards. And I'd love to know what else you're reading at the moment. I am going away next week. Oh my goodness me, I'm going away in a week. And for the first time in probably about a year, I'm going to read fiction. I've got my fiction lined up and I am so looking forward to it. I'm stepping out of my textbooks, I'm stepping out of research, I'm stepping out of all of the stuff that I normally read, and I am stepping into deeply, deeply light novels, and I'm so looking forward to it. So until next month, let me know what you're reading. I'm always keen to know, and tell me if you want to join a book club, because I'm so ready for a book club. I'd love to see you there. Lots of love. Stay strong for the month.